here from Milan.
From here. Thank you, George. As you see, the title of my talk makes even a little rhyme, and that's my disclosure. I'll be talking again about blood pressure at night, but looking at it somewhat in a somewhat different manner. We've been talking about the level of blood pressure during the night, but we know that day and night is different, and that there is a change in blood pressure between day and night, which has been identified several decades ago. When this change was identified, the term dippers, non-dippers was coined, meaning that normally your blood pressure will decrease during the night by at least 10%. Let's say that fully normal range would be between 10 and 20%, while there are people who are non-dippers, so people in whom this decrease during the night is smaller, and you can be hypertensive dipper, you can be hypertensive non-dipper, but you can also be normotensive non-dipper. The two principal categories were first defined with a cutoff of 10% decrease in nocturnal blood pressure, and then further subclassification was proposed with a subgroup of risers, so people who have higher nocturnal than diurnal blood pressure, and extreme dippers, those who drop more than 20% during the night. And as I said, you can have different combinations with nocturnal hypertension. These two phenomena are linked. Dipping is very dependent on foremostly on nocturnal blood pressure, less on diurnal blood pressure, but you still can have people who are non-dippers with normal nocturnal blood pressure and can be reverse dippers like this here with maybe normal diurnal blood pressure. So there are different possibilities. So what causes non-dipping? Many things can. Here you see an example from our studies at high altitude. The three graphs that you can see represent three different altitudes in the same people. It's an average of about 50 people, 25 people. And as you can see, at the bottom line is at sea level. This is intermediate altitude, 3,400 meters. Then when you go to Everest base camp at over 5,000 meters, your curve will look like this. So what you can note is that blood pressure increases, but it mostly increases during the night. So actually the dipping is reduced. It is reduced. Why? We are not completely sure why. Probably because you become more hypoxic, but also probably because you sleep worse. In this condition, sleep quality is impaired. So among different determinants that underlie the nocturnal blood pressure fall, we can look at several physiological mechanisms. We can identify several pathological conditions that can be associated with this condition, but we definitely should look at sleep. And among different sleep-related factors, there will be also sleep quality. What is sleep quality? Well, we can look at it as a subjective, something subjectively reported. We have tools to measure that. We can look at it in a long-term scale, so over the past months, like with the Pittsburgh scale, or we can look at just the past night, which is maybe what will be more interesting in this talk. Again, we can have a question on that, but you know, questionnaires have their limitations, so we prefer obviously objective assessment. Objective assessment can be done with less accuracy with actigraphy, with more accuracy with polysomnography. And from that you can derive different parameters with efficiency, so latency, how much time you get to get sleep, wakefulness after sleep onset, so how much time you are awake after you've fallen asleep once. Sleep macrostructures, how much deep sleep, how much REM sleep you have. And sleep microstructure, so whether you have arousals during the night. Now, when we think about blood pressure and sleep, there are several questions we can ask ourselves. So one, is there actually a relationship between sleep quality and dipping? And then we need to ask questions about our conventional measurement, that is ABPM. Can it really affect sleep quality? And can it affect dipping? So do we need something else? So let's try to answer these questions. So does sleep quality affect dipping? The response seems obvious, and yes, it does. This is one example showing the correlation with Pittsburgh score, with other elements characterizing sleep quality in a subjective evaluation. And as you can see, all they are related to dipping, or at least most of them. But also, if you measure it objectively, these are the data from Wisconsin Sleep Study, one of the largest cohorts dealing with these issues, and you see that there was a significant relationship between WASO, between sleep time and sleep efficiency, which is the proportion of time spent in bed when you actually sleep. And all this was associated with dipping. Now, what happens when you put a classic ABPM on a patient? Well, all of you who deal with this method know that many patients complain about it. They will come back and tell you, I won't put it again because I didn't sleep. This is our clinician's perception. And if we think about it, we are dealing with a kind of Schrödinger's cat. You know this concept from quantum physics that unless you did the measurement, you don't know the spin and the position of a particle. But once you did the measurement, the cat dies, and you have no information on what happened before. And same thing could happen to nocturnal blood pressure. If the method you are using affects nocturnal blood pressure, then you might be measuring something imprecisely, at least. So does ABPM affect sleep quality? When you look at objective sleep quality, actually there is little data because it's difficult to do polysomnography and ABPM both. But for example, in this quite recent study by Socrates, so George knows the person, there was actually no difference in the characteristics in the number of arousals or sleep efficiency. This was done with actigraphy, so less accurate method. And old studies from Milan group showing that when you do automatic inflation, you actually, when you're awake, you do not increase blood pressure. On the average, there is no hypertensive response to cuff inflation. And when you, this was a study cited also by Professor Mancha this morning. This was a very, let's say, sophisticated study, so it's a small sample, but interesting, because it was 48-hour recording with intraarterial blood pressure monitoring, and 24 hours out of this 48 were also with oscillometric ABPM. There were no significant differences in blood pressure and in dipping. So in this small group, actually, conventional ABPM did not seem to affect dipping. Then the largest probably study on this topic is by Paolo Verdecchia from the Puma cohort, and they identified, this is not a very precise evaluation of sleep quality, but they asked people how long they slept compared with their normal standards, and they found that those who reported sleeping with ABPM on shorter by at least 2 hours compared to their normal tended to be less dippers. And interestingly, these people, when they were non-dippers, this status was not associated with cardiovascular risk. We know that I didn't repeat all this data showing that non-dippers are at increased cardiovascular risk, but in non-sleepers or poor sleepers, this is not true. So the alternative, we are here to talk about home devices, and let's start with something obvious. People like home monitors better than ABPM overall. This is mean acceptability. The upper row is home, the lower is ambulatory, different studies, always the same. The score tells you the lower it is, the better they accept it. So there is a significant difference, and when you look at what is one of the most important components, you'll find that sleep disturbance is the major discriminant between ABPM and home blood pressure monitoring. So you have already seen that we may try and reconcile these issues. So we may get something that home blood pressure was missing. That is the estimate of nocturnal blood pressure while using a home device. So the night view is you have seen the OMRON device, which is a wrist device, automated validated wrist device, which is programmed to typically to measure at 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and after 2 hours after the device is activated. So we get normally 3 measurements. And this is a meta-analysis from our Greek friends, looking at different studies, comparing the device, but also others, with the standard that is ABPM, nocturnal BP, and there was just very minor difference in terms of nocturnal blood pressure, in systolic blood pressure, no significant difference in diastolic blood pressure. So the absolute estimate was fine, and you have already seen the study from Japan showing that this method actually correlates well with cardiovascular outcomes, which is what interests us most. In our group, we recently ran this study where we included hypertensive patients who did office ambulatory blood pressure measurement, and they used both the wearable heart guide device, which is only suitable for daytime because it is manually activated, and also the night view for the night, but also for the morning, evening measurements. So I will show you some data regarding the reproducibility of dipping and the arousals. First, the impression of the patients. The patients were generally happy with the device. They found it easy to use, and the acceptance was good. But as we know, that's not enough. 80% said that it had absolutely no effect on their nocturnal sleep, which is quite different from ABPM. Then we looked in a subgroup of patients. It was not easy because we had to do a full polysomnography with this device and have a good quality data. So we have data in 14 patients on that. We looked at the actual arousal, so not just the quality of sleep, but very specifically if there was an arousal following the measurement itself. So the tracings were synchronized, and we looked at as reference what happened just before measurement, 10 seconds after, and 20 seconds after the measurement. And what we found that among these people, only one person had an actual arousal within 10 seconds after BP measurement, but this was following a sleep apnea, so probably not related to the device itself. Another issue with dipping, less so with nocturnal blood pressure, but mostly with dipping, is its reproducibility. We know that it is not perfect. These are the data published by Professor Mancha showing that when you categorize these patients according to their dipping, these are long-term follow-ups, and they very frequently switch category, to put it briefly. We looked at this aspect also in another study we are doing, just looking at 2 categories, dippers and non-dippers, and found, which is more or less in line with most studies, this is a short-term reproducibility, so it was within a few weeks at most. We found that about 1 out of 3 change category in such a short period. Why does this happen? One of the reasons may be actually the variability in the quality of sleep. We sleep differently on different nights. And this is an interesting study where they looked at the reproducibility of dipping, and they found that one of the most important factors was the difference in sleep fragmentation between different days. So obviously, the more it was fragmented, the less dipping there was. So this is something where the home devices have good potential, I would say, because when we look at our data, on average, they give you quite similar values on different days. The reproducibility between different days is not that good, which is in line with what we know. But we may expect that if you measure it on different days, you will get a better estimate. So I conclude saying that we know from the previous talk that nocturnal blood pressure, but also nocturnal blood pressure dipping, is an important predictor of cardiovascular outcomes. We know that sleep quality affects nocturnal blood pressure, dipping, and clinical outcomes. We know that we still have the 24-hour ABPM as a standard for diagnosing nocturnal hypertension and assessing nocturnal dipping, but we know that it is frequently poorly tolerated. And considered this, we can say that nocturnal blood pressure monitoring with home devices clearly has a potential for clinical practice, given that such devices, cuff devices, are validated according to current standards. They are clearly better tolerated compared to conventional IBPM and do not seem to interfere with objectively assessed sleep. And we know that they provide prognostically relevant information and have the advantage of the possibility to repeat the monitoring on different nights over a shorter or longer period of time. Thank you for your attention.